What if the couple who once walked away from royal life is now quietly finding its way back to Britain? 6 years after Prince Harry and Meghan Markle left the United Kingdom and began a new life in California, a stunning new chapter appears to be beginning. According to multiple reports, Harry and Meghan are preparing to relocate to Britain with their 2 children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. And this isn't simply another short royal visit. Reports say the family is expected to spend an extended period in the UK, with Archie and Lilibet set to begin school there in September. But here's the part that makes this story so fascinating. They aren't returning as working royals. They aren't moving into a royal residence. And they aren't officially stepping back into the institution they once left behind. Instead, Harry and Meghan are reportedly establishing a private home somewhere in Britain, while keeping their properties in California and Portugal. So why would a couple who built an entirely new life in America suddenly decide that Britain should once again become part of their children's lives? That is the question everyone is asking. Back in 2020, Harry and Meghan stepped away from senior royal duties and eventually settled in California. Their departure changed everything. The couple became financially independent, launched major media projects, spoke publicly about their experiences inside the royal family, and Harry later released his memoir, Spare. But the move also came with a painful consequence. The relationship between Harry and several members of his family became increasingly strained. And perhaps nowhere was that tension more visible than between Harry and his older brother, Prince William. For years, reports have suggested that the brothers have struggled to rebuild their relationship. Harry's public revelations, interviews, and memoir exposed deeply personal disagreements, while William largely remained silent. The result was a royal family divided not just by distance, but by trust. And that brings us to today. Because Harry and Meghan's decision to return to Britain comes after a surprisingly important family reunion. Earlier this year, the Sussex family reportedly spent private time with King Charles and Queen Camilla. The meeting was significant for another reason. It gave Archie and Lilibet an opportunity to spend time with their grandfather after a long period apart. For Harry, that family connection appears to matter deeply. And according to recent reports, King Charles was made aware of Harry and Meghan's relocation plans on August 16th. The reports also say that the king welcomes the opportunity to see more of the Sussex family in a private and personal capacity. That doesn't mean everything has suddenly been fixed. Far from it. There is no indication that Harry and Meghan are returning to official royal duties. They are not becoming working royals again. And their new British home is expected to remain private. In other words, this isn't a royal comeback. It is something much more personal. A family trying to build a new relationship with the country they once left behind. It's their children. Archie and Lilibet have spent much of their young lives in California. Now, according to reports, they are preparing to experience British life in a much more direct way. They are expected to attend school in the UK beginning in September. That means birthdays, school events, holidays, and everyday childhood moments could potentially happen much closer to their royal relatives. Imagine what that could mean. Archie and Lilibet could grow up knowing their British family not simply through stories, photographs, or occasional visits, but through regular contact. And for Harry, that may be one of the most important parts of this entire decision. There is another major factor hanging over everything: King Charles' health. The king has been undergoing treatment for cancer, and Harry has publicly expressed his desire for reconciliation with his father. That makes this move particularly emotional, because time changes everything. Arguments that once seemed impossible to overcome can look very different when family members realize that life is moving forward whether they are ready or not. Harry may still have complicated feelings about the past. Charles may still have difficult memories of what happened. William may still have his own reasons for keeping his distance. But Harry and Meghan's move could create something neither side has had in years. proximity, and proximity can change relationships. It can create opportunities for conversations that simply aren't possible when family members live thousands of miles apart. But there is one relationship that remains the biggest question mark. Harry and William, the brothers, once appeared inseparable. They experienced the loss of their mother, Princess Diana, together. They grew up inside the same extraordinary institution. They understood each other's lives in a way very few people could. But somewhere along the way, that bond became deeply damaged. Harry's memoir and public comments made reconciliation even more complicated. And while there have been signs of Harry trying to rebuild bridges with his father, reports continue to suggest that his relationship with William remains far more difficult. So could Harry and William eventually reconcile? Nobody knows. And that may be the most interesting part of this entire story. Because Harry and Meghan returning to Britain doesn't automatically mean the family feud is over. It doesn't erase the past. It doesn't erase Spare. It doesn't erase the interviews. And it certainly doesn't guarantee that William and Harry will suddenly become close again. But it does create a new opportunity, a chance for the next generation to have a relationship with their British family. A chance for Charles to spend more time with his grandchildren. And perhaps, eventually, a chance for Harry to rebuild some of the relationships he lost. For Meghan, the move could also represent a completely different chapter. The Britain she left in 2020 is not necessarily the same Britain she is returning to. She and Harry now have their own careers, their own businesses, their own identity, and their own life outside the monarchy. They don't have to return to royal duties to return to Britain. They don't have to live inside a palace. They don't have to become working royals. They can simply be a family living privately in the country where Harry was born. And maybe that is exactly the point, because sometimes moving forward doesn't mean forgetting the past. Sometimes it means returning to it with a completely different perspective. Not as representatives of the crown, but simply as parents who want their children to know where their father's family comes from. And that raises one final question. Could this really be the beginning of a royal reconciliation? Or is Harry and Meghan's return simply a practical decision about family, education, and the future? For now, nobody outside the family knows the full answer. But one thing is clear.